Hey, it's Ephruz and welcome to another mechanical keyboard review. Here I'm looking at the Varmilo VA87MR, which has a lot of switch and LED options, but my specific one has Gateron clear switches and white LEDs. From what I've seen, Varmilo has gained a lot of popularity in North America and Europe due to the availability of their keyboards on mass drop, and more importantly, being one of the first 80% keyboards to have the option for the, also new at the time, Gateron switches. Unboxing can be summarized with a very short clip. Gateron is a brand of switch that has surged in popularity in the past year due to their seemingly consistent quality control and relatively nice feeling in comparison to other brands trying to fill the void of demand for Cherry MX, such as Kale, Greetech, and Otemu. Their clear switches are 35-gram linear switches, and reportedly these switches are closer to 30 grams when observing tests from people like Ripster55 on the mechanical keyboard subreddit, so they're actually the lightest switch you can buy on the market in 2016 by a long shot. For me, the switches were easy to get used to, and I think for a single keyboard as your daily driver, the switch might be preferable, especially if you're on the computer for significant amounts of time and have hands that can easily fatigue. However, if you're someone who has multiple keyboards, perhaps one for work and one for home, or one for gaming and one for typing, then you might find these switches too light every time you go back. I have another keyboard with me right now for another review in the future, and a keyboard that is the same model but with Coster stabilizers and Cherry MX red switches, and every time I go back to these switches I constantly rest not just my thumbs, but several of my fingers on the keyboard, and will start entering nonsense into any text box I've selected. If you have a wrist rest, this might be less of an issue or not an issue at all for you. Sometimes my typing speed decreases because of the lightness of the switches and frequent accidental presses, particularly when I get back to using the keyboard again from another keyboard with a heavier switch. The lack of tactile feedback has also never been an issue for me until I encountered these switches. I don't have an explanation for this, but sometimes I question whether I press the key when I'm typing closer to my max speed, and I'll have to pause to look at what I'm typing to make sure everything went through how I wanted it to. Also, for some reason, shortly after I got this keyboard, there were instances where when pressing spacebar, I'll actuate the key twice without noticing. I wasn't able to replicate this on camera, but ultimately, I much prefer Cherry MX Reds, and may consider heavier linear Gateron black switches or clicky Gateron blue switches in the future. Now for the keyboard itself. The price can vary significantly. You can get the keyboard for around $110 off mass drop or Chinese retailers after shipping with front print PBT keycaps, which is the default setting, but I chose to buy a bare bones model off r/mech market and black on dark gray dye sublimation, aka Dyesub, keycaps from Taobao, which cost me about $140 by the end of it all, which is a similar price to getting the keyboard with black on gray dye subs from mass drop. For that price, it's living up to its popularity. The keyboard has little torsional flex and has very close to that crispy sound that you might hear with Leopold, Philco, or Cool boards. This is something that I was looking for when buying a new keyboard because I was tired of the squishiness that was present in most of the gaming keyboards out there. Here's a sound test of the keyboard. The only issue I ran into was the position of the LEDs. The LEDs are placed on the bottom when you get a keyboard with white front print keycaps, so they illuminate through the keycaps, revealing the text when it's dark. But this isn't the problem, as with Varmilo Keycaps, the LEDs do not interfere. However, with 1.5mm thick PBT keycaps, specifically the ones I have are from Enjoy PBT, on the R2 row, my keycaps would come in contact with the LED, and it would feel like I had a squishy O-ring installed and made very little noise, which was rather unpleasant. Here's the sound test of the issue I'm talking about, with Varmilo Dyesubs and Enjoy PBT thick blank keycaps on the R3 and R2 rows for comparison. The options for LED customization are 4 different levels of brightness and breathing with no ability to adjust the breathing speed, so it's not like the LEDs are giving you more than some aesthetics, visibility too if you choose to get front printed white keycaps and you don't keep breathing on. If you don't need LEDs, I would recommend not getting a model with LEDs if you're going to change to stock keycaps. However, if you get ABS or thin PBT keycaps, you should be fine. The fact that Varmilo offers stock PBT Dyesub keycaps that don't interfere with the LEDs as an option, though I haven't seen a top-mounted LED option for this keyboard, so be careful when making your purchases, also makes this less of a problem, as they are still thicker than traditional thin PBT keycaps, and when buying mine off of Varmilo's Taobao store, link in the video description, I was able to get the keycaps in 9 days from Shenzhen, China to where I am. 9 days may sound like a long time to some of you, but for comparison, that's how long it takes Amazon to ship me anything since I don't shop there frequently enough and in small enough quantities to warrant purchasing Prime. Just make sure you keep track of the two-part process that is paying for the product, then paying for shipping after it arrives at Taobao's warehouse. Overall, I think the keyboard is highly recommendable, particularly because of the massive amount of keycap and switch options and the build quality. The floating keycaps design is a matter of preference, but I like it because of how easy the keyboard is to clean. Also, if you want a 10 keyless keyboard with Gateron switches, this is basically your only option. If you enjoyed this review, make sure to like the video and subscribe to see more, and share it on social media if you would like me to get more exposure. Thanks for watching my review, and I'll see you in the next video.